I was like, that's
This
a
is
big
my
piece.
battle.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I like cut them and I cut them
chicken.
and ate and then I
Well,
cut
yeah,
them
I couldn't open a can ever.
because I wasn't gonna have
open
enough.
it correctly.
And they were like
taking
huge
it off the
anyway.
other way. I went,
Well, it was a good idea.
So I had like a
literally
piece
these
of
were
party
and
at
a big piece.
Auburn quiche.
Stretch across
I'm
the
glad you
paper.
like it.
I think Auburn quiche.
piece of hers.
Mario, Lord over moves. It's like, we're good. We got like
That's all we
two
can
quiche
back
supplies
for.
and we have to like combine our cheesecake together. And it's like somewhat savory. Dessert. And then tamale with a pepper.
I don't think.
You were doing cheese
French
balls.
cheesesteaks, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Those were
We
so
make, like,
good.
They were really
like
easy.
cream puffs and like fill it like with cheese or
Yeah,
like cream cheese.
all you like the only difference is like the cream puffs, like you don't mix the cheese in. And then you like have to make the cream, but
Yeah,
just like figure out.
I love
Gotta
cream
be-
puffs.
So be right.
I mean, they're like dough cream puffs. One of us should have made
Remember should have making?
So you're
I was-
gonna have straight.
I don't know where that came from.
Should making me
This is,
nice.
Megan.
But yeah, somebody should have made donuts.
Is that what she said?
That
She said she might not.
so yummy.
I
But they
kinda
would like
have
slay
to
for
do
hours
something
of it and like,
I don't know.
And we have had starch milk.
like
I
inject it
made
with like.
that.
She's a girl.
And usually for
What was that
beer
shirt?
or
That
see his face?
helps a lot actually.
I made that.
some hyped up, energized.
Vincent, I did my Chewbacca noise again.
No!
Do it again. It's good. Do it again.
She's like, it's like a
You're
weird
the
kid.
Chewbacca. Holly's Rafiki is your Chewbacca.
Do it. Do it.
Except like the other day, like yesterday, it was like in your
moaning
throat.
too,
It was
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it was perfect.
Yeah, yesterday I actually like.
It was like legit, like from a movie.
And it was so unexpected too.
Like, what did I? Somebody was like said something like.
I know, I don't even.
I feel like it was
remember,
something
what
you
it
talking
happened.
about something he did, and I was like, no, it's more like. That's all you have to do is like.
Hannah Dorian. Wookie.
But I get like on the back of like my cat account like what?
Like going for like
Instead of
you get a
sniffing,
jacket or something.
Wookie.
How was the French day?
Awesome.
Tasty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently I can cook, so.
Yeah.
What'd you make?
Orange chicken. Well, French style.
Not like
Not
not
Japanese.
Japanese.
Did you just follow a recipe card or what?
I had a recipe at first. I tried doing a souffle, but I didn't work because I didn't know, because you can't get it anywhere near it when it's like just coming out. So I sneezed by it and it just like deflated, and I was like, what? So we decided to like make orange chicken instead. That was like short.
You sneezed by it and deflated.
Like you can't like breathe near it or anything. Like it's that fragile.
In the movies, that's why
Yeah,
I was like,
and then literally you just go like, achoo, deflate. I'm like, what?
Had you made a souffle before?
No.
Was your idea just because souffle sounds French, or did you?
I just thought because it sounded cool and I've always wanted to try one before and I've never had one.
Well,
I
I'll
was
make
kind
one.
of excited for it.
I know, right? I was like,
It's like a,
looking at
there's
all the
usually
stuff
a
and it's like,
dessert,
where
but I made
you
a
like
souffle
upload
for
search for?
lunch.
I was like, oh yeah, that'd be
So
making
much
that.
time.
I,
It's pretty much bread and cheese.
I don't know, Summer, I don't know what, like because a souffle is pretty daring. I think most people would be intimidated by wanting to do a souffle. The fact that you found that like exciting to do, I don't know what it is that you need to find yourself in eventually, but something where taking risks is involved, because no, you're very risk averse. It's good. I imagine in ballet it's helpful
Yeah.
whenever you're like willing to give something a shot, take a chance with a move.
It's like, I'm like, alright, cool, I'll try. Usually, sometimes I
Then you
don't
like soda Boston and me.
Yeah.
And the fact that what you did make was good, like you know what good food is supposed to taste like, there's gotta be, I don't know, there's gotta be something where, like, it makes me think like someone who's involved in like a trade of some sort, like dancing and cooking and those things would be something that would be up your alley, because you're really like, it's impressive to want to make a souffle. That to me takes a certain personality that obviously you possess and that a lot of other people don't. So
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. I don't know how that ultimately will present itself, but know that your willingness to just go for it is
You can't really go in life if you're just not really
It's good.
chill.
that mentality is not shared by everybody.
No, most people don't go by that, they're like, oh, it's different, so I'm not good. Okay, that doesn't really make you grow as a person, but alright.
I like where you're coming from. I like where you're coming from. Because it is true, when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone,
You
that's
kind
when
of
it
realize like, oh, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
And like, you're like, oh, maybe I can actually do this in a career. But people are like, oh, I live in this bubble, so I don't want to go out this bubble.
I live in this bubble.
Why?
there is a mentality of that that's because I guess it's easy to only do things that you know you can do well, and it's easy to only do things that you have experience in a sense, because you have experience in them, so you know that you're maybe good at them, and maybe it's easy just to focus on the things that you're good on, but it is I think it's a good. I'm trying to give you reasons why people would
Mhm.
not take risks,
So
probably
especially,
off
like how you
fees,
said, like, this is like the
convenience.
day and age of like information.
Mhm.
Especially like in this like time of year, why would you wanna not learn as much when you could like learn so much?
Kramer, you bring up a very good point, because, well, you said you never made a souffle before?
No.
You
I
just
don't even know how to cook till like yesterday.
You basically just went online and found a recipe and then made it, is that how you did it?
Pretty much, I asked my mom for like what tools to use, and pretty much she's like, alright, do it, and I was like, cool. Just kinda just work for it. Really wasn't expecting it to be the best, but it turned out good.
I'm kind of, I'm with you in a sense of, in this day and age, and I think everybody will agree with me here, you can learn about anything on your own. I mean, really. There is almost nothing that's off limits to you. Just being alive and having enough access to, like, living in an industrialized country where you have access to a computer with the internet. I mean, if you had to, you could go to the public library and go on the computer for an hour at a time every day. And maybe for more than an hour at a time if there wasn't a line. I mean, to think about what that enables you to do. It enables you to easily connect with friends if you would like. It enables you to read up on celebrities who you're probably never going to meet. I mean, it allows you to talk gossip about celebrities that you're never going to meet. Like, I mean, really think about that for a second. Like, I know just yesterday I had the TV on and something came on with Lindsay Lohan again, and it's like 5th time to rehab. Like, when do we stop caring? Like, and why do we care?
I don't understand why people are still surprised by it. Like, every time that something happens with her, they're like, oh my gosh, she's in court again. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, have you seen her behavior? Have you heard her parents talk? I mean, if you, I watched her mom in an interview, and it was.
she's crazy.
Yeah, she basically like was contriving reasons to defend her daughter's behavior, and it's like, if your daughter's basically,
And you don't do anything about it.
yeah, like what does that say? I don't know what that says necessarily, but you get to the point where I'm with Jordan and saying like it's fully expected at this point, and not only is it expected, but why do I even care? Like, 'cause she's like, people have tried to, and I suspect the best thing for Lindsay Lohan, this is my opinion, the best thing for it is not to put it in the press, because she wants the attention, and that's going to give her attention by putting it in the press. 16 and pregnant. There was someone on Dr. Phil talking about how they had a kid, these two 16-year-olds had a kid because they wanted to get on 16 and pregnant. That's a problem. That's a problem. Number one, those kids have some need for attention that's not being gotten from their other like friendships and family relationships. That's one. Two, the fact that a show gives anyone the primary motivation to have a kid, problem. At 16, problem. Like, okay, have a kid later in life, fine, but at 16, like, you haven't even been on this earth for 18 years, you don't even know what it's like to be alive for 18 years yet. You're going to be bringing something into this world that you're going to be responsible for 18 years. Think about that. I mean, really, like nobody in this room has been alive for 18 years?
Besides me.
Okay, so Kramer just barely knows what it's like to be 18 years old. I mean, seriously imagine a child that you're going to have to, for an entire lifetime, for your lifetime span, you're going to have to be taken care of, and primarily taken care of where their needs are above your own. I don't think that, like, I see Jordan shaking her head. She's like, my needs number one, not anybody else. Right?
Well, I mean, I nanny, so I'm around kids all the time.
You know what it's like.
No.
But even whenever you're nannying, I can imagine, like, you're putting your needs above the kids because you're like, hey, I need a job, I need to make money, this is a fine job to make money at, I'm decent with kids, all those things. So you put those pieces together, and you're ultimately rationalizing the decision because it's the best thing for you. I would hope that anyone, when you're in a situation whenever you're having kids, you're rationalizing it with the same exact perspective. Like, this is the best thing for me right now, is to have a kid. Like, I think I can imagine, I mean, I'm not there yet, but I can imagine being in a position where that thought would come to your mind. And you'd be like, you know what, the best thing for me to do right now is to have a kid. Okay, boom, have a kid. But until you get to that point, I think you set yourself up for, at the very least, internal conflict for 18 plus years, if not for the rest of your life, having a kid under different circumstances. That's my opinion. I think anything that you do, if you don't fully think it out before you do it, you set yourself up for the possibility of failure. I also think there are situations like going for a souffle where you say, I know that there's a chance I'm going to fail, but I'm willing to do it, because if it works, it's going to kick ass. I mean, I'm putting words in Kramer's mouth, but I think that's kind of where the thought process goes there. So, like, there's like a couple different trains of thought there. One of the cautious, careful, premeditated thought. I think that should be necessary for all long-term decisions. If not, you're just going to make yourself, you're just going to get into conflicts. And when it comes to something like a short-term decision like souffle or going to the movies and not even knowing what movies are showing and just picking one or something, like, hey, there's a chance you pick a movie that sucks. Like, I mean, there really is, and you just wasted $10 because of it. But that's part of the excitement of going to the movies and not knowing what you're going to pick. So there are certain situations where, and I would argue those would be like short-term decisions. Like, hey, I got free time, I got this, I'm just going to give this a shot. I'm going to go down to German Fest at Concordia Seminary and realize that nobody's there and turn around and go back home. But at least I gave it a shot, right? No, that actually didn't happen. Okay. I played Frisbee over there when German Fest was going on, and nobody was there, so I imagined people showing up. And, I just imagined it, like, yeah, right? Like, because you could see a commercial on TV, oh, maybe that would be interesting, go give it a shot, and then, you know, it sucks. Like, I think those are fine circumstances too, yeah.
It's like your point about how 16 and pregnant, how like watching a show, kids actually want to just like, hey, let's go get pregnant now. But I feel like it's never going to change the attitude we have like nowadays. How kids are just like, oh, let's just do something like that, just get on TV. Like, that doesn't make the mentality behind it doesn't really make much sense. But because they don't lack attention, they decide to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's never going to change with kids or people anyways. Because no one's really, there's no one's actually, because not all people have like that thought process like how you're portraying, like how
discerning.
Yeah, discerning, like that. No one thinks like that.
I would say that would depend on whether or not it would ever go back to a cycle like it was 30 years ago.
And let me.
Yeah.
I hate to go back 30 years ago and paint a picture of it being unicorn rainbows.
Right.
Because. I mean,
I don't think everyone was like going out and getting pregnant though.
I was just watching I was watching Everybody Loves Raymond yesterday, and there was a scene between Ray and his mother where Ray was like defeated from an argument that he had with his wife, and then he goes over to his mother for like counsel, and his mom is sitting there, and while Ray is defeated, his mom's like Ray is feeling bad about the fact that there's an argument. And he's not liking the fact that he's now having to like come to terms with what was happening. And then his mom says something like, oh, but you know, back in your childhood, everything was perfect. And Graham was like, yeah, it was. Well, darn it probably wasn't, right? I mean, if you really look back at your childhood, there's been many things that have been like blunders and successes along the way, and more blunders and more successes and more blunders and more successes. And what you realize is, if you want to, you can look back and say that the past X number of years have been great. And I think the mentality of, oh, back in the good old days, is when we look back at our past only remembering the good things. Because if you want to, you can look back at your past and remember all the good things. And if you want to, you can look back at your past and remember all the bad things. And if you want to, you can look back at the past and see everything. Right? There's basically, and you could be somewhere in between, possibly. I think the 30 years ago mentality comes from looking back at the past and seeing it all as like rosy.
Right.
Think
but
about
like,
that.
in terms of that specific topic, I think
Yeah.
like, back then, like, if you look at, I think,
Teen
I
pregnancy
could be
rates are
wrong,
higher
like,
now.
teen pregnancy rates, there was
Yeah.
like a totally different outlook, like, way back in the day, like, people wouldn't even think about like that before they were married, like, way back when.
And let me pose a question, because this is just something that I'm posing an idea. I don't know if this is necessarily true. I don't know if anybody's tested it. But it's easier to connect with people now than it used to be. You used to have to pick up the phone, and it wasn't just your phone in your pocket that's always on you. It was the house phone. That mom may have already made agreements to talk to Uncle so-and-so at 6 o'clock. Like that's how it used to be, because you only had one phone line for the whole house. You know, Dad's got to talk to work at 8 o'clock. So if you're on the phone and it's 7:59, you got to put the phone down because Dad's got to pick it up and call. That's the way that things used to be. I suspect that that would have an effect, because you're only around people at school. When you're at school, there's 5-minute passing periods where you can really talk to people and like mingle. Whereas today you can go on Facebook. I would wonder what the effect of being able to easily access like anyone within a certain radius of you would make it more likely for people to communicate. And when there's people communicating, there's people developing feelings for one another, and there's people wanting to act on those feelings, and then there's kids among teenagers. Like that's where my mind just poses that question. And I also posed like a thought, just a thought, not trying to really ruffle any feathers, but at the same time trying to like just get down a little bit deep inside to think. It is easy to say that people like teen pregnancy rate is going to escalate forever. I can also say this: if you do nothing about affecting the teen pregnancy rate, if you do not champion the cause at all, like now you obviously are in control of your body for one. For two, you're also able to use your person to advocate not having kids as a teenager, or advocate not developing feelings for strangers on Facebook or something. You can advocate this, okay? You can imagine that advocating this would have a positive impact of some sort, and maybe you could say, well, the impact I don't think would be worth it, and it wouldn't be worth my time. If you take the mentality of it's not going to change, that almost says that not only do I not care if it changes, but I don't think anybody else out there is going to care. Now, I think it's a fine stance to say I don't care about something, because the reality of it is 6 billion people, gigantic planet, tons of needs. You've got to pick what you want to go after. We were just talking in biology class. Paige Hazlett asked a question about, will we be presenting like creationist theories to counterbalance the evolutionary theories? And going through the whole discussion, I even got to the point where I was like, I'm teaching math and science to ballerinas. Like, what the heck, right? Like, basically that came out of my mouth, but in so many words. And thinking like, am I doing the best thing that I can do, like, for the world? Like, should I be in Somalia helping people who are hungry? Helping people who don't have means to clean water, and maybe I could show them clean water because they don't know that there's a stream 20 miles away because they've never been 20 miles away from home. Like, you're sitting there saying there's so many needs out there. I think ultimately I'm seeing eye to eye with Kramer's point in the sense of you have to make choices about things that you just say, you know what, I I am not interested in investing any of my life to helping that cause. But if there is a need there, and I think, Kramer, when you say, I don't think that's ever going to change, I think underlying that you're saying, but there's a problem with it. I do think that there are people out there who, when they say, but there's a problem with it, they follow it up with, having said that, I'm going to do something about it. And I think there are people out there who are trying to do something about teen pregnancy. I don't think that they've organized enough to really have an impact to where get 16 and Pregnant off the TV, or at least get it off MTV, because MTV has a target audience of 14 to 24, and I'll tell you right now, it struck me. I never thought I was going to watch MTV until I had it, started watching it, and when I turned 24, I stopped watching MTV, immediately. I just stopped caring about it. It's funny, because MTV knows that's their target audience. The commercials are geared towards 24-year-olds. I challenge you to flip to Game Show Network during the day, whenever you're at home on spring break, and the commercials are geared towards geriatrics and stay-at-home moms. Old people and stay-at-home moms. You can see it. I would argue, this is my opinion, having watched Game Show Network with roommates who were 20-something guys, and seeing every commercial and knowing full well that the commercial did not apply to you. It was almost hilarious watching the commercials. If you had an old person watch the commercials that are on display during a football game, it might be just as hilarious to them. But to you, because you're in the target audience, this ties into what we talked about yesterday, it feels like they're talking to you. It's weird how that is, because there's people out there communicating television who know how to get a message across. And I would say, if there's something that you genuinely don't care about changing, stop worrying about it. Because if you're going to do nothing to change it, don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry about there. Only worry about the things that you can change. Only worry about the things that you can affect. And choose those things that you can change. And worry about those things and go after those things. But the things that are over here that are able to be changed, but you just don't care to change, if you put any mental worry into that equation, you're going to be just becoming worrisome. If you know somebody out there who you think might be at risk of getting pregnant as a teenager, you should be talking to that person. Because just griping about 16 and pregnant isn't going to fix the problem. There's a chance everybody in this room knows somebody who might get pregnant next week. You should be talking to that person, because that's where the effect is going to be made. Because just talking about 16 and pregnant, oh 16 and pregnant, oh these people, you actually don't change anything. All you do is you put your mind worrying about something without actually affecting what needs to be changed. Because you might realize that what's worrying you about 16 and pregnant is someone that you know, and then fix the someone that you know. Don't fix the 16 and pregnant, because let's be honest, none of us here are probably within 5 years of getting 16 and pregnant off the air, even if we wanted to be. Maybe a year. If we wanted to, maybe we could start a Facebook group, maybe we could organize, get everything together, talk to our senators, congressmen, and get something happening. But let's also be perfectly honest, even if we put a year into that, fully concerted, probably not going to happen. 16 pregnant is probably still going to be on the air, because MTV can put whatever they want out there to make whatever money they want.
Because do you feel like that should work with people also? If people, if you're trying to help someone change and they just don't change, then say you're trying to how you're talking about the pregnancy thing. Say if someone is close to getting say it's someone they're in their way of being pregnant, but you try to help them and tell them what not to do, but they don't do what you're saying.
I hear exactly what you're saying, because this is what I would say to that. You always have to make a choice of, is it worth the time that it's going to take? I think, is anybody missing anything hugely significant? You may have a meal to eat, but I'll let you guys eat during study hall if you have to. I think this is important. Let me see if I can. Okay, well, this is, I'm trying to offer you like real advice here, because this is like, this is what I do. This is one of the things that I do. I shouldn't say this is what I do, but this is something that, Kramer, you said this yesterday whenever you left class, that discussions that we have that are more organic and about this or that are things that in some senses stick with you more than law of cosines or something. Right?
The statement's true.
Okay.
For on our notebooks, that's like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, at the top of my notebook,
On our
I'd always
notebooks.
like write
Or
about
your
your
fun
day.
facts and stuff like what.
Oh yeah, I
I
it's all over the
like
place.
I like my.
Well, that makes, that, I don't know if that well, I was gonna say that makes me feel good, but then I think about it, I think, oh my gosh. The teachers who I did that about in or in high school were quacks, but,
That's on my back of my Twitter. I'm from you, but that's okay.
I'll take that for what it's worth. Kramer, your question was, because I think what you basically asked was, where do you draw the line
Yeah, 'cause at
on
some
when you
point,
give up?
it affects you, because you're exhausting yourself saying so much words and wisdom, like trying to give their advice, but if they're not gonna listen to you,
Yeah.
then why put the effort in? Because then, but the only problem is people's like, oh, you're selfless. But then how are you
Selfless?
selfless? I would say selfless, but how are you selfless if you put your time and energy
Yeah.
that you could have been doing something else,
Mhm.
even more productive than what this is,
Mhm.
but yet you tried to reach out to this person, and like you gave them more than, not even just one chance, not even 2 chances, not even 3 chances,
Yeah.
more than like 5 chances.
No more chances for you.
Yeah, okay, no.
You give them like 5 chances,
Yeah.
and yet they still don't do anything to show you chances. Because like, to me, when people say, like, I've grown to the point in my life to where, when you say words to me, like, it's not like I don't care about the words, but I don't really like take them in as much. Like, I want to see the action nowadays, because I've gone through lots of times in my life where people have said, oh, I'm sorry. Like, tons of people have said like words to me that they mean well, but
Mhm.
when they actually came to show it, like who they were, they didn't show it. So like my trust with people has like lessened over the years because of that.
Mhm.
That's why I'm all about like, I want to see you do it. I don't want to
Yes.
like hear you say it. I want to see the actual action of it going through.
Mhm. Yeah, this is oh gosh, how do I title this then? Okay, so let me go back to the point whenever I looked outside to see if Allie was out there. She's probably out there right now. She was just a couple minutes late. But you only have so much time. And I think ultimately every
We're all dying.
yeah, it's happening, like come to terms with it, okay. Seriously, I'm seriously because if you don't come to terms with the fact that you have an expiration date on this planet, then you will be wasting your time doing things, not considering the fact that your time is going away. So, I think one of the best things that anyone can have is acceptance of the fact that you only have so much time. That's why when you see starving people in Ethiopia on TV, when you see a car bomb that went off in Iraq, and it's not police sweeping up the rubble and the dead bodies, it's not the fire department, it's not EMTs, it's not the army, it's people. Like people who live on that street sweeping up their like neighborhood mates. Like that is unbelievable. I mean, living in our country, that is impossible to believe. Because when there are 2 cars that run into each other and there's broken glass in the street, the cops sweep it up. Like, we're so used to that. But when you see that and you think, man, if only I could help those people, if only I could do... And then you ultimately have to come to terms to realize, like, you can't do it all. Like, you can only do so much. And you have to focus on the things that you think are worth focusing on. To that effect, Kramer, like, I think when it comes to people, too, like, you, inadvertently or not, choose to make alliances with people. You choose to put your trust with people. You choose to not put your trust with people. We do this all the time. You may not even realize that you're doing this, but whenever you're in a conversation with somebody, or whenever you're in a conversation with a group, listen to what you're saying, listen to what you're thinking, and think, who, when they're talking, are you coming up with arguments to defend their point of view? That's someone who you are putting trust into. who, when they're talking, are you thinking of counter arguments to what they're saying? That's someone who you're not trusting. Like, think about that whenever you're in conversations, because like Kramer was talking about, who you choose to put your trust into greatly affects who you are and what comes of you, because if you put your trust into people who aren't going to